Okay, welcome everyone. As Greg said, this program, which was actually done on a trial basis this past fall with the SAM program at the Soccerplex in Germantown. And the slides are based on games played with build-out lines for the youngest age groups. So if your particular club has some other varied need, we could adapt this slide program to that if necessary. Also, as we go through, you'll see that we're only highlighting the parts of each law that apply to those types of games. And I may even make comments along the way of that it's advisable to tell referees to ignore certain parts of the laws for these probably U8 players that will only slow down the game and will have no effect on the outcome or their ability to get maximum touches on the ball, which is what it's all about. The other thing was the SAM program does not record scores of any games, which helps maintain some semblance of order with spectators and coaches. So if you're not doing that now, you might want to change your plan because it does help. So I think with those comments, I also see that Gary Wheeler's from the SAM program is on the call. He may have some input at the end as to what worked, what didn't work at his comments. Okay, Greg, you can hit the next. Okay, so this is the most important thing. If you're playing at your games at a complex, it's probably not an issue because the complex will take care of the goals being anchored. But this is the number one thing that these young referees have to be told. They can't play the game if the goals are not properly anchored. And if they can't be corrected, then there is no game. Anything else with the field is not a problem. If the lines are wrong, if there's no corner flags, none of those things are safety issues. And a U8 player is not going to know if the field is not lined correctly. They just want to get out there and play. But goals being anchored is number one priority. Okay, next, Greg. Okay, so for those U8s, the new referees must be told that they have to use a size 4, and they can check the pressure by just pressing the ball on each side, and one of the coaches should have a pump if necessary. Make sure the ball is safe, no tears on the panel. Okay, again, properly inflated. Get the coach to correct this. They should be able to find one good ball between two teams at least. Next. Okay, players. I'm assuming that your leagues are going to be playing 7v7. If this minimum 5 is not correct for your league, that can be changed. Next, Greg. Okay, these games, the referees have to be told that it's free substitution, that as many as want to come in and out as the coach wants is acceptable, but they need to be told to make sure the correct numbers of players are on the field before restarting the game after substitutes. So a lot of times each team will put 4 new players, and so you've got 8 players changing places, and it's easy for the referees to get confused. So they need to be reminded that they should recount the players if necessary to make sure there aren't too many on the field. Equipment, they have to check all of these things based on your particular rules of competition, whether you require jersey numbers on the goalkeepers. The biggest thing is they have to make sure that shin guards are under the socks. Sometimes these U8s will show up with the shin guards on top of the socks, and the Velcro fastener comes loose and shin guards go flying, and that's a safety issue. No jewelry. It's not a big issue with U8s, except sometimes there's some of them that have just had their ears pierced and their mom or dad wants them to play. They can't play even if it's taped. No jewelry. Someone has a cast, it has to be padded and safe, and it's up to them as the referee to make sure to decide if it's safe. Okay, when the weather gets cold, the players can wear long sleeve shirts or pants, but as far as shirts, they have to make sure that the player jersey is on top of that long sleeve weather protector. Okay, as far as being the referee on the field, this is one of the biggest issues with new referees, even the fully certified new referees. They don't blow the whistle loud enough for players or coaches and spectators to hear it. What we tell them is they're not blowing the whistle loud enough if the players aren't stopping, which doesn't 100% apply to a U8 player, because last fall I had to sub in and do a couple games where the assigned young referee didn't show up. And even though I know how to blow the whistle loud enough, the players kept playing because they just want to play at that age. But they have to learn how to blow the whistle loud enough and to learn the signals, which during the course, those signals need to be demonstrated to these new referees. Next, Greg. Okay, the big thing about injuries, especially on these young players, is stop the game as quickly as possible. These new referees need to be told that if they don't do that, a coach or parent is going to come running onto the field without their permission, and then they have a bigger problem. So if the player goes to ground and doesn't get up immediately, stop the game. It's all about safety. And they need to be talked to about possible concussions. The likelihood of them having head-to-head contact is probably next to zero, but they could get hit in the head with the ball, or something else they might fall and bang their head on the ground. If anything presents itself as a possible concussion, they have to leave the game. And they can't come back without written permission from a medical professional. And at this age, there is no heading at all that's allowed, even if it's inadvertent. Depending on your particular league rules of competition, it might be a drop ball or it might be an indirect free kick for a restart. Regardless, if that incident occurs in the penalty area, we tell the referees to move the ball outside the penalty area, because the restart for heading when they're not supposed to head the ball is not supposed to create a scoring opportunity. It's just supposed to be a reminder that there's no heading. So in this case, the referees and other cases on the field, these young referees will be teachers sometimes as well as referees, especially on things like throw-ins. These young players some of them will have no clue how to properly conduct a proper throw-in. So we tell them to give them a chance to redo it and show them how to do it correctly. If it's close to correct, let the game flow. But if it's really an egregious violation, let them redo it. This presentation assumes that the game is 2 25-minute halves. If your league is different, we can change the slide. We tell them, even though the laws of the game allow for added time, the leagues usually don't want that because they have back-to-back games and they want them all to start on time. So unless there's a real long delay for an injury, they're not adding time. Okay, in addition to presenting these slides, we did have a field clinic right after the presentation of these slides, and we had them do a coin toss so that they had some familiarity with doing it. Next, Greg. Okay, this is another thing where they might have to be a teacher, because a lot of these U8s, they won't understand that the player taking the kickoff can't just start dribbling the ball. So if that happens, they need to have them redo it and explain that it has to be a pass to a teammate. Okay. Then we go over drop balls and when they would be needed. And the last thing under this law is if the ball hits the referee, even though there are some nuances to it in the laws to exactly when you restart with a drop ball, it's easier with these games to just tell them that if the ball hits you, restart the game with a drop ball. Okay. A reminder that the entire ball has to cross the entire line, or when the referee stops play, that's when the ball is out of play. Okay, as I said in the beginning, these slides were based on no score being kept in the games. If your league is different, we can adjust that. Okay, so offside with games played with build-out lines can only occur between the build-out line and the goal line. And the ball must be played from an attacker to a teammate. And they won't be able to see the close ones, but they should call the obvious ones. But based on last fall's trial of this, none of them were able to, even by the end of the season, were able to recognize an offside. And nobody really cared. Okay. There were probably, of all the games played, there were probably less than 10 of those situations. The players obviously didn't know, didn't care. They just wanted to run around and play the game. And the coaches seemed to just ignore it because there were no standings, no scores being kept. So that alleviated the pressure of who won the game. As far as Law 12 fouls and misconduct, we tell them to call the obvious fouls. That they'll see what's an obvious foul. They're all going to have played. And we also tell them at this age, most of the contact is accidental. It's lack of body control when you're under 8 years old. And they bump into each other and they fall down and they get back up. And it's very rare you actually have a foul other than maybe handling the ball. And as far as playing the ball on the ground, I didn't see that much of it this past fall, but it's okay as long as no other player is nearby. Okay, as far as goalkeeper violations, the goalkeepers are not supposed to hold the ball for more than 6 seconds. We flat out tell these new referees, don't call it. Just encourage them to release the ball. They won't know, they won't understand it. And it's just, the reason it's there is to speed up the game. So just encourage the goalkeeper to get rid of the ball and don't be giving indirect free kicks because the goalkeeper held the ball too long. The other two things with goalkeepers at this age is that we tell them not to call is pass backs, because their teammate might pass the ball back to the goalkeeper the goalkeeper will pick it up, which technically is a violation, but it's not worth dealing with it at this age. They'll be trying to set up an indirect free kick 7 or 8 yards from goal. It'll probably take 5 minutes of game time away from these kids. So that's the kind of thing we tell them to ignore. Or if the goalkeeper grabs the ball, then drops it and picks it up again, technically that's a violation. Just look past that. Okay, as far as free kicks, indirect, if one of these new referees happens to call an offside, it would be an indirect free kick. We tell them what the signal is for indirect free kick. Penalty kicks are a possibility. Usually one of these kids will handle the ball when they're not supposed to in the defensive penalty area. So if that happens, it is a penalty kick, and they're going to have to be a teacher teaching these players where they have to stand, who's taking the kick, what the goalkeeper can do, all those things. So we teach them what to do with that. That the goalkeeper has to have 1 foot on the line till the ball is kicked. Usually the goalkeeper won't even attempt to make a save. They'll just stand there while the ball is kicked. Okay, the elements of a good throw in: part of each foot on the touch line or on the ground behind the touch line. They have to face the field, throw with both hands from behind and over the head, and from where the ball left the field. Sometimes some of them will try and throw it in using one hand, or like a baseball throw. It's okay to have them retake that. There's going to be, when we get to the end of the slides, there'll be a video on the build out line. So it'll show the goal kicks with the build out line procedure. Next. Okay. So on these small sided fields, the distance on a corner kick from the corner arc is 8 yards, not 10. And there's no offside for the first player to receive the ball from a corner kick. Okay, Greg. No sound.
As you see, these matches are
Larry, were you not able to hear any sound at the beginning?
I didn't hear the sound
U9
that goes with this video.
All right, so we'll just restart the video then.
Welcome, new grassroots referees. The video presentation you are about to see includes some live game action and explains how to officiate matches played with build-out lines. As new referees, you will likely be assigned to some of these matches as you begin your refereeing career. As you see, these matches are for U9 and U10 players. The purpose is to promote building play from the back without undue pressure. This slide shows the dimensions of the field, and specifically that the build-out line, BOL, should be halfway between the top of the penalty area and the halfway line. If the field is not lined exactly as the diagram shows, you should still allow the match to be played. If the BOL is not clearly marked, you can ask the coaches to put cones just outside the touch line on either side of the field to mark where the BOL should be. Opposing players must retreat behind the BOL on goal kicks or when the goalkeeper gets possession of the ball. Opposing players must remain behind the BOL until the ball has been put in play. The ball is in play when it is kicked and moves on a goal kick. The ball is in play when it has been released from the goalkeeper's hands after possession. The players wearing the pennies have possession of the ball. One of them kicks it out for a goal kick. The players in the white jerseys are defending the goal to the left. All the players retreat beyond the BOL black dash line. The goalkeeper kicks the ball beyond the penalty area and the match resumes. When the goalkeeper has possession of the ball, he or she can release the ball back into play by rolling it on the ground or throwing it. The goalkeeper may not punt or drop kick the ball. The goalkeeper may put the ball back into play before all the opponents retreat behind the BOL. If he or she does so, the team is stuck with the consequences. Referees should be lenient about enforcing the 6-second law by only beginning to count the time of possession after all opponents have moved behind the BOL. If the goalkeeper is taking too long to put the ball back in play, just encourage them to release the ball. The players wearing the pennies are attacking the goal to the left, and the ball ends up in possession of the goalkeeper. The players wearing the pennies retreat beyond the BOL, but one player in the white jersey remains in the penalty area. The ball is then put into play by the goalkeeper throwing it upfield. In this video, the goalkeeper in the red penny has possession of the ball, and two teammates are in the penalty area. The opponents are retreating, but the goalkeeper releases the ball just as the second opponent reaches the BOL. The opponents immediately attack the ball. Again, the goalkeeper may not punt or drop kick the ball. If the goalkeeper does punt or drop kick the ball, then the opposing team gets an indirect free kick, IFK, from the spot of the offense. If such an offense occurs in the goal area, the IFK is taken on the goal area line parallel to the goal line at the nearest point to where the offense occurred. In order to support the intent of this player development initiative, the referee should not allow any ongoing lack of respect for the BOL or intentional delay. Coaches should correct any such issues with their players, and the referee can remind them if needed. If the issue persists, the referee has the option of cautioning, yellow card, the coach for unsporting behavior. The BOL also affects how offside offenses are called. There are no offside violations between the halfway line and the BOL. Offside violations can only occur between the BOL and the opponent's goal line.
Okay, so then these new referees should be given these expectations of what is expected of them when they get assigned games. They should arrive 30 minutes before their first game so that they can check the field and the players and do the coin toss. Arrive properly dressed in whatever uniform you end up giving them with the proper equipment, their whistle, their coin, etc. As far as positioning, they should just move enough on these small fields to be close to play without interfering with the play. And again, blow the whistle loud enough that the players stop when they hear it. Give correct hand signals and stop the game quickly when the player goes down. We found that to improve the effectiveness of a program like this, these young referees should be supported at least the first 2 days they're assigned games with mentors. And the mentoring focus should be on the list of things on the prior slide. And encouraging of all those things, encouraging the things they did well, and then helping them understand the things they need to improve on. Or it's like not showing up on time, you need to encourage them to do so, pointing out that they need time to conduct the pregame duties. Proper uniform gives a professional appearance. And encouraging them to move on the field so that they can be close to play. Again, blow the whistle louder if the players aren't stopping. And as far as mentoring them on signals, most of them, their first couple games, they'll see who the ball went out off of for like a throw in, but they really won't be comfortable enough to know quickly which way to point the direction. Seems like a simple thing, but it happens, especially with new referees and the younger ones. Can you back up, Greg? So what we tell them is initially, if they see the ball went out off a red and it's the white team's throw in, just say throw in white. And then when they pick up the ball and they see which direction the throw is going, then they can point. And after they've done that for a couple games, then it'll be much more automatic, the signals. Next. And give them a lot of encouragement when they stop the game for injuries or possible injuries. And if they're not doing that and they get a negative reaction, like someone running on the field when they shouldn't, they should be explained why that happened and how they can prevent it in the future. And again, encouraging them to be a teacher as well as a referee, especially respect to throw-ins, build out line, kickoffs, and those few goalkeeper violations I mentioned. Okay, Greg.
I think that's the last slide, Larry.
Okay.
So I think at this point, we should open it up for Q&A. I see Dave has put a few questions in the chat. Maybe I'll read them to you, Larry, and then you can address them. So the first question from Dave is that during the presentation, you mentioned U8 a few times, and he wants to know if we are looking to have referees working U8 games.
I think you correct me if I'm wrong, Greg. This is a program that can be used by each club individually based on what they want to use them for. They won't be fully certified referees. I just said U8 because that's what the experiment we tried in the fall was with the U8 games at the Soccerplex.
Correct. And so to build on that response, the local referee development program that Larry has put together here for our jurisdiction, it can be used for and should be considered for any and all small-sided recreational in-house games. And so that would go all the way through your U12s. So technically it could work at the U8s if you needed them or felt you should. But if your league chooses not to have referees at that age, I think that's totally fine as well. One of the other questions that Dave put in the chat was, well, I guess he said that this is why offsides should be taken out of the rules for your league at this age. And then he also mentioned that you should remove, he mentioned that when you were talking about those build out lines, the video made it look like all the players needed to retreat behind that build out line. Can you just correct the record that it's only for those offensive players, the defensive players can stay?
Right, I think the slides on the build out line said only the opponents were required. It was the fact that when we shot that video, what happens is the teams are taught by their coaches in certain situations, retreat beyond the build out line. And most of the teams don't differentiate between whether they're defending that goal or they're an attacker, and they all just run behind the build out line. So to find video to represent what you're talking about was near impossible, because they all just run beyond. There was one part of the video, I think, that showed once where a teammate of the goalkeeper was in the penalty area, closer than the build out line, and on the restart. But yes, you're correct. Only the opponents have to go beyond the build out line.
Perfect. Are there any other questions for Larry? Again, this video is designed to provide enough of the basic information so that any club leader would be able to implement a similar program within their jurisdiction. So are there any other questions that you might have?
Greg, just to let everybody know, if they wanted to implement a program like this and they wanted me to come and assist the first time anyone from their club did this presentation, we could arrange that. And I could also give them some additional guidance on gathering a group of mentors to help these young kids when they first start out.
Perfect. And so what we plan to do, if you're thinking of questions, what we're planning to do is when we're done here, we will place this recording on our YouTube channel, and in a future member update email, I'll have a little blurb about this, which will include the link to the video and then any other documents or materials that Larry has that would be able to be provided, to include like the slide deck that you saw today, just to make sure we provide as many of the tools and resources possible so that you would be able to begin implementing these locally if you decided to do so. So let's pause one more time for any other questions. You can either put them in the chat or you can just unmute and ask your questions. And I see that Gary Wheeler's microphone, he doesn't have one, but Gary Burke, did you want to share any feedback from the pilot program you did this past fall? To put you on the spot.
Thanks, Greg. Much appreciate that. Thank you. We got about 17 brand new referees to partake in the program all the way through. After the initial, I think we got about 25 to 30 showing initial interest who came to the sort of opening meeting. From those 17, we have had at least 7 continue through the winter as well. So I would say it's definitely been a successful program so far, which we do plan to continue going into the spring. So any club that kind of has control of their referees, or can tell the CASA or MWSRA, we don't need you at U9s because we have our new program, I would definitely give it a try. It's very beneficial.
Thank you, Gary. Any last call for questions?
And not a question, but just a clarification. Larry was referencing U8 because here at SAM we play 7v7 at U8 and 4v4 at U7. So that's why he was talking about the U8s. We would have no problem though implementing it with our U9s and U10s at this point.
Good, thank you. All right, well, again, thank you all so much for taking the time to get on today. If you have any questions or want to follow up, you can certainly reach myself or Larry over email, or you can reach us by phone. Larry, did you want to put your email in the chat? I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording at this time.